see, I kind of taken this blower apart. I was not expecting to have to take it apart this much. Wanted to clean the carburetor. I bought this at an auction, $10 item. It says it started but wouldn't stay running, which usually means it needs a cleaned out carburetor. So I took the carburetor off to clean it, and what I noticed was the lines for the fuel tank were just disintegrating as I was taking them off. I'm going to go through how to change these lines out, and actually how to put a new filter in on them as well. Let me get a little comfortable here. We're going to be here a while. So there's a few things to note. One thing is the size of the lines. One fun thing I found was this multi-pack that comes with different size lines. Over on Amazon, the Amazon Fairy dropped those off. This is my old set of lines. This has worked very well for me. This is pretty much the standard size line. This one actually has two different size lines on it. So we're going to have to use some of these new ones. But this is pretty much after buying 15 feet of this stuff. This is what I got left of it. So I had to buy some new line. Wanted to be stocked up for when I'm ready to go. Get this out of the way here. Here we go. And then I have here some 2-cycle oil. This is also something you're going to need. Usually these things run on 2-cycle oil, so you probably have this around. I bought this for a chainsaw. It was a 16-to-1 ratio. So you know what is a 16-to-1 ratio? This entire 8-ounce bottle of 2-cycle oil with 1 gallon of gas. I got rid of that chainsaw pretty quickly. Replaced it with something that was a 50-to-1 ratio, which is more standard. This is actually a 50-to-1 ratio bottle. This is a 40-to-1 ratio. I'll probably be running 50-to-1 because I'm not too concerned about this. And they're really close to size. 50 is a little bit lighter on the oil. The higher the number, usually the lighter the oil. With the 16-to-1, this is the entire 8-ounce bottle. Got rid of the chainsaw. Still had the full bottle of 2-cycle oil. I don't know if you can see this really well, but there's not a whole lot of oil left in this. This is all from doing what we're going to be using it for today, changing up lines. So I have a little bit of experience. For those of you who sit there and think that I make this look easy, maybe I will, maybe I won't. I don't know. We'll see how things go. But if you have a little trouble at first, it's common. They're not that easy to do. So this one, we have a benefit. I don't have to pull the old filter out because it just kind of fell off. This thing has a lot of oil residue sitting in it. I might try to wipe that out or something. I don't know. But now, these lines come out pretty easy. One of the things to make sure is that you use, make sure to get that old line out of there. Is it even in there still? Or did I get it all? It's in there. So you got to try to shake this out. You know what we'll do? That comes out pretty easy. It goes back in pretty easy. So this has a little fitting in it. That's interesting. Anyways, we won't be using that anyways for this. We're just going to stick the tubes right in the hole. You want to make sure you have the correct size tube, maybe even a little bit bigger if possible. This should actually work for this. What we're going to do is actually start by taking this and try to cut it at a pretty sharp angle, because that's going to help us get it started through the hole. You might wonder, how is he going to get that filter in there? So when you have two different sizes like this, you usually only need one filter, and it's going to be the one that actually feeds the blower, the weed whip, whatever you're working on, in there. Let me get up and show you this. See if we can get in there, get from against my yellow shirt here. And so we kind of tapered that end. That's going to get trimmed off eventually, but this is going to help us get it in to that little tiny hole in the gas tank where the wire is supposed to go. The other thing that's going to help us is this oil. I like to use 2-cycle oil on this, and the reason why, it'll burn up in the gas tank. Worst case scenario, if there's a little extra, it just will smoke a little bit, but it's designed to burn, and it's what's required on this. So even if you're using a 4-cycle weed whack or whatever that doesn't take the oil in the gas can or the gas tank, you can go ahead and use this, because worst case scenario, it'll smoke a little bit for a little while until the oil burns off. And we're going to take that tapered end, and we're going to go ahead and try to shove it in there. Now this takes a while and some getting used to and a lot of work. What you might need to do is take a pair of pliers and actually work at shoving that in there. So we'll just kind of go doo-doo-doo. So this is not the easiest job in the world. It takes some coercion and some forcefulness. Maybe some nice talking. Please go in. Pretty please. There you go. We got it. Seems like we got it started at least. And just kind of take the line, try to shove it in there the best that you can. One other useful tool are these long-range pliers. There's different types and sizes. Each gas tank, it depends on the gas tank, which one's going to work the best. But once you get that in there, you might be able to reach in there with this and pull it through the other side. I'll show you in a second what I mean. So we're going to try using these. But actually go through in here and be able to drift through. Sometimes you got to get it in through quite a bit. I can't even see it through here, so that's one of the issues. So we're just going to have to keep going and putting it in until we get to the right point. Okay, so now it's just a matter of staying close and keeping it a little bit at a time and just put it in. Now I can actually see it straight through the hole here on this one. Sometimes you got to reach down way in there, and like pliers like this won't get to the bottom of it. That's where the long reach comes in handy. This one is actually right here at the top, so I can grab it with my pliers and just start pulling it through the rest of the way until I get a good amount out. And then I'm going to take that taper end and straighten it off and snip it off. Just like so. Where is my new filter? Here's my new filter. Now this big cable, which is the one that feeds the actual carburetor, probably before I mess with that, please wipe the oil off my hands. I'm sure I'm going to get plenty on there. Did I get any dirt on my face? And I always hate when this happens, but it looks like I have the wrong size filter for this line. Although the old filter doesn't look too terribly bad. Maybe we'll just clean this up. And put this one on. It should be fine. Worst case scenario, I'll end up doing this again, but this should be fine. Doesn't look real dirty. Now typically, a lot of times that you get these, they won't have the filters on. They're supposed to have filters on. So, when you get them, make sure that there's a filter, or maybe even two, floating around in there. And what we're going to do is pop this sucker back in the tank. And basically, you have to figure out where this is going to go. So it sits like this. So we want the filter and everything to be on the bottom of the tank, which actually looks like it's going to be down here. So I'm just going to pull this up until we get it pretty much right where we want it. careful because you don't want to have to pull that out more. And I'm going to leave this end on it, and what I'm going to do is, once I get the carburetor back mounted off, I'm going to trim it off just so I can maintain as much of this line as I can for a future project. See if I can get this thing open. Pretty sure this is the, maybe not. Maybe it's a different size. One way to tell is if it goes in really easy, it slides right in, you got the wrong size line. They should fit in there really snug, because that's creating your seal. Now, steel weed whips, and I know Echo does a little bit slightly different. They usually have gaskets on the top. This is going to be basically for your run-of-the-mill. This is a Craftsman. Man, how do they got these things together? Jeez, knots galore. There we go. Come on. There we go. There's the line. So these are going to be for your run-of-the-mill Craftsman. The Ryobis I usually use run on these as well, and work this exact same way. You know, if you got a Troy build, any of those little more inexpensive ones that are like a couple $100 and you got a new weed whip, that's what these are. That's what you'll use these for. And we're just going to repeat this process. This is the one for the primer bulb. That's why it's a little bit smaller. Just putting a little bit of that oil on there makes this world, a whole world easier. I saw this on a YouTube video. It was a while back ago. So unfortunately, I don't know who it is to give credit to. I don't remember. That oil is definitely a trick worth using. Now, seen our line. Now this primer bulb one isn't going to have a filter on it, so you can technically leave the taper on it if you like, or straighten it out, whatever you prefer. Back out any excess. There you go. The lines are in. There's a new filter in. And yeah, all I have to do now is mount this sucker back in. I won't put you through all that. This thing was a pain to get apart. And then once I get the new, I have to clean up the carb, but once I get the new carb, or should I say the old carb cleaned up, put back on, we'll figure out how long we need these wire cable, or these tubes, and trim them down to proper size so we can maintain as much of that extra as we can to use on a future device. Yeah, this thing was a real pain. They're usually not this big of a pain. They usually just kind of have a couple bolts. Sometimes you can just pull the carburetor off and do it with them right on the machine. Not so much on this one. But I got this because it sucked and blows. And it was cheap. So maybe someday I will eventually replace it or whatever when it actually dies and blows up. Till then, this is what I'm using for that purpose. I don't really have a whole lot of use for something, but every once in a while you need that. Especially right now, I'm coming into fall. Use it quite a bit. Be very useful for the fall cleanups as opposed to just blowing everything in a pile and having to pick it up. Just being able to suck it up to begin with and just be able to dump it and get rid of it that way. Not to mention also mulches, so if you're dealing with a lot of leaves and other debris like that, there's a blade in there that'll kind of mulch it up, make it smaller so it'll fit, you can fit more in a can or a bag or whatever you're putting it in. So that's the main purpose of this. So hopefully after I do all of this, it'll start, it'll run, it'll stay running, and I can blow and I can suck, and yeah, I mean, I guess this is just one of those videos that really blows.